morning. Good morning. I'm a little under the weather this morning, but I'm still going to read out of the book, Sacred Contracts. Contracts of Myths and Masters. Your contract, along with all the subcontracts contracts that constitute it, is not an end in itself. It is a means to an end, a plan to help you develop your divine potential. Think of your sacred contract as a life course in which you are meant to learn many lessons. I have to wipe my glasses off. When you start out exploring any course, it is best not to become overly concerned about defining it in a single sentence or narrowing its purpose to a single lesson. It will take you a while to be able to say that you were born for one specific purpose, as Mother Teresa did, since you will be trying to uncover many agreements and learn many lessons that your mission contains. The idea that we have life lessons and tasks that we are assigned to complete is an ancient one. Dr. Clarissa Pincola Estes, in Women Who Run with Wolves, tells the story of Vasilisa and Baba Yaga, an archetypical tale that she dates back to the prehistoric horse goddess cults, even earlier than classical Greek mythology. Vasilisa is a young girl whose mother is dying. Before she passes, however, the mother gives Vasilisa a tiny magical doll to guide her. Should you lose your way or be in need of help, her mother says, ask this doll what to do. You will be assisted. After the mother's death, Vasilisa's father remarries a widow with two daughters who are, as in so many fables, cruel to Vasilisa because she is sweeter and more beautiful than they. Hoping to get rid of her, they deliberately extinguish the fire that warms their house and force her to go into the forest to get coals from the old witch Baba Yaga. To find her way through the dark, menacing woods, Vasilisa reaches into her pocket and consults the doll, who tells her the right way to go and every fork in the road. When Vasilisa finally locates the old witch and asks for fire, Baba Yaga tells her that she can have it only after the girl performs several seemingly impossible tasks for her, including separating the mildewed corn from the good corn and retrieving millions of poppy seeds from a pile of dirt. While Vasilisa sleeps, her doll completes the tasks. The tiny doll hidden inside a pocket symbolizes every woman's need to use her intuition when making difficult, fine distinctions in judgment. Just as our dreams can help us solve our problems if we pay attention to them, so can our still small voice within. The fresh and mildewed corn, poppy seeds, and dirt represents what Este calls remnants of an ancient healing apothecary, which also symbolizes healing the mind and spirit with the help of intuition. After Vasilisa completes the tasks, Baba Yaga gives her a skull with fiery eyes to take home and relight the hearth. Vasilisa returns triumphantly, and with this inner fire restores the life-giving flames to the home. By morning, the fiery skull has burned and the cruel step family to cinders. As Estes aptly points out, this is a story about the power of intuition, specifically about power handed from mother to child. Over generations, she writes, these intuitive powers became as buried as streams within women, buried by disuse and unfounded charges of disrepute. However, Jung once remarked that nothing was ever lost in the psyche. Women can rediscover and act on their inner powers. Men, too, grow detached from their natural intuitive powers and need to become reacquainted with them, as Vasilisa's father had to awaken to the evil he had unwittingly brought into his home. We all must be mindful of inner thoughts and our actions, so they do not lead us to hurt ourselves and our loved ones. The frightening journey that Vasilisa agrees to go on, and the tasks she undertakes, are her path to power and self realization, her contract. She and all of us are meant to learn to rely on our little doll, our inner voice and self, the intuitive sense of where to go and how to proceed in life with all its dangers and demands. Ultimately, as in the classic hero's journey of mythology described by Joseph Campbell, Vasilisa returns home with something of great value to both herself and her tribe. Her willingness to accept her contract and learn from it sets her up in the position of personal power and invulnerability from external influences. Like Vasilisa, you too will have many tasks to fulfill in many aspects of your life. Your sacred contract, your mission in life, cannot be reduced to just one thing, one job, one relationship, one goal. To help you grasp the full extent of your sacred contract and its agreements, it might help to compare them to a simple business contract. In short, a sacred contract is an agreement with your soul that your soul makes before you are born. You promise to do certain things for yourself, for others, and for the divine purpose. Part of the contract requires that you discover what it is that you are meant to do. The divine, in turn, promises to give you the guidance you need through your intuition, dreams, hunches, coincidences, and other indicators. Legal contracts hold us accountable for the multiple terms and clauses that are part of the overall agreement. Even in taking out a mortgage to buy a house, for example, you are required to do more than simply make a monthly payment. You have to keep the house and property in good repair, pay taxes, insure it, and usually, in order to accomplish all this, deal with numerous other parties. You also agree to abide by the law of the country and state in which you sign the agreement or take out the mortgage. Your sacred contract, too, subjects you to the laws and orders of a greater state, that of the divine, the whole of creation. In fact, follows rules that govern and maintain the flow of energy and life, from the law of gravity to those of thermodynamics. From the earliest days of civilization, humanity has been given rules to follow and has accepted the need to abide by them. Among the most widely accepted of these, which can be considered subclauses or your sacred contract, are the Ten Commandments. Even before Yahweh handed those codified rules to Moses, however, he had made other covenants with Noah and Abraham, promising to protect their offspring and help them prosper if they met certain terms. For the first time, the scriptures used the word covenant, a term that usually meant a legally binding agreement between two or more parties. In essence, a contract. As a visible symbol of his covenant, God put a rainbow in the sky to remind himself to uphold his end of the agreement. In return, he required that Noah and his descendants be fruitful and increase in number. More significantly, Yahweh commanded not only that they procreate, but also that they respect the sanctity of life, saying that, from each man I will demand an accounting for the life of his fellow man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the images of God has God made man. God established his covenant with Noah and his descendants, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all those that came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth. Genesis 7 through 9. In other words, we are to be stewards and caretakers of the planet. God later established a similar covenant with Abraham, offering to preserve and multiply his offspring in exchange for Abraham's agreement to have all the male children of his people circumcised. Although both Abraham and Noah's contracts were established in what we might call the spiritual realm, they specified particular terms of action in the physical world, compliant, compliance with which would yield great benefits to all parties. Here are some other comparisons between earthly and sacred contracts. In a legal contract, two parties agree to participate in some task or to hold themselves accountable to the same commitments for a mutually beneficial reason. In a sacred contract, an individual and the divine commit to a mission that promises to expand that individual's spiritual consciousness as well as further the expansion of the divine on earth. In a secular contract, you commit to doing what you must to fulfill the terms of the contract legally. You may also agree to work with subcontractors or obtain raw materials you need to complete the agreed on tasks. In a sacred contract, the divine guarantees that all materials or energy that are essential to completion of your task will be provided. The provision can include anything from receiving necessary earthly capital to being guided into certain relationships or developing illness. A legal contract holds you responsible for the quality of the project or product. You warrant that you are qualified for the task. Although you have everything you need within you to fulfill your sacred contract, you will not be provided with everything you want. You will probably have to learn that you have the inner resources to do what you need to do. You will have to learn your strength and the capacity to push yourself beyond your apparent limitations. In a business contract, work is offered in exchange for some kind of support, usually financial, often in the form of an advance or binder. Some contracts provide regular payments throughout the term of the contract as certain subclauses are fulfilled. You may be promised certain future bonuses, such as royalties, residuals, or stock options, and you may receive certain secondary advantages, including on-the-job training, expenses, insurance, and other fringe benefits. In addition to financial I can't say this word, remuneration, one party may offer help in other ways. In a deal between a writer and a publisher, for example, the publisher may also agree to promote your book in a number of ways with advertising and publicity tour. In the sacred contract, your payment is in a spiritual capital, in insight, purpose, self-understanding, and the attainment of spiritual attributes such as compassion, selflessness, and faith. Your sacred contract is supported by divine guidance, what we might call a heavenly bank account, on which you can draw for inspiration and energy to complete your assigned task. In addition, you may receive an unexpected infusions of grace from time to help complete your tasks. Although a legal contract can be broken, there are often severe consequences, including legal and financial penalties, which can extend for years. A sacred contract is a learning process and therefore cannot be broken. It commits you to developing your inner consciousness and your understanding of how to work with forces greater than your own personal will. Our personal and spiritual growth benefits others around us. We learn, among other things, that we are here to help each other. Because a contract is an opportunity to empower your spirit, you are bound by higher laws to pursue that process. You are often given more than one opportunity to complete a learning process. Each time you try to avoid an opportunity or challenge, the consequence becomes even more severe. If conditions change over the course of a business contract, you may be able to renegotiate its terms in good faith. If, for example, your expenses exceed expectations for reasons beyond your control and keep you from fulfilling your agreement, you may be able to request some form of financial relief. Professional athletes, among others, renegotiate long-term contracts if their market value is perceived to have increased significantly. As you progress in understanding the terms of your contract and what you have agreed to learn, you may discover that what you thought was a contract to develop your personal potential to become better at your work, say, is actually a contract to expand your divine potential. Although your contract hasn't changed, your understanding of it can, and it may feel to you like a renegotiation. The Spanish philosopher Miguel de Unamuno once wrote that as humanity suffers on earth, God suffers with us, which is, after all, the root meaning of compassion. Although we have agreed to certain terms, it may be that those terms evolve as we evolve, and that even the divine doesn't know exactly how things will turn out. A legal contract includes elements of choice. You are free to decide how to follow through with the terms of a contract as long as those terms are met and agreed on by the agreed on date. If I'm under contract to deliver a manuscript by January 1st of next year, it doesn't matter whether I write one page a day in my spare time or take several months off to work intensively on the whole thing. I can write it by hand, type it, or work on the computer as long as the final result is coherent and adheres to the subject matter that was promised. A sacred contract also includes the elements of choice. For all that the divine provides, you have complete choice about whether to view the provision as a blessing or as a burden. You may choose to delay the terms, but you can't avoid them altogether. As a temporal example of how choice works, imagine that before you were born, you agreed that in this life you need to learn to master the use of a knife. Prior to your birth, your guide offered you a piece of wisdom. If you grab the blade first, you will cut yourself. You will bleed, and it will take you a long time to heal. You will be angry with your knife and thinking that it is a weapon. You will use it to harm others. If, however, you grab the handle first, you will think of the knife as a tool, as you will use it to make wonderful creations as a cook, sculptor, designer, or surgeon. Either way, once you come back to the heavens, you will have mastered the use of this knife. But the choice of how you do it and with how much suffering is in your hands, literally and symbolically. If you can choose to learn by wisdom or by woe, consider, for example, that learning the power of forgiveness is essential to your spiritual path. Learning forgiveness indicates that you have someone to forgive. So, say that you need to forgive your parents for pressure they put on you or demands they make of you. Or maybe you need to forgive a boss who fired you from a job in which you were financially secure but emotionally unfulfilled and unhappy. These people are playing a role in your life that is necessary for you to figure out. Through your interactions with them, you will learn about your purpose. You have to make a conscious choice whether to forgive them. Without a doubt, the choice to forgive is a greater challenge than remaining resentful. But this more difficult path will bring you peace and spiritual wisdom. Resentment, though appealing to our sense of righteous indignation, comes with a high price in the long run. It is harmful to our physical, mental, and emotional health. When you choose not to forgive your parents, employers, and other supposed adversaries, you isolate and alienate yourself from others and from the world. You trap yourself in an unhealthy energy pattern that can even lead, ironically, to making you eventually dependent on others through illnesses and other life circumstances. Refusing to accept a spiritual task, such as forgiveness, is a painful way to learn. But learn you will, and if you refuse the lesson, you will encounter it again and again and next time. Okay, so I'm going to read what archetype we were on. We stopped at bully. Child, orphan. The orphan child is a main character in most well-known children's stories, among which one could identify Little Orphan Annie, The Matchstick Girl, Bambi, The Little Mermaid, Hansel and Gretel, Snow White, Cinderella, and many more. The pattern in these stories is reflected in the lives of people who feel from birth as if they are not part of their family, including the family psyche or tribal spirit. Yet, precisely because orphans are not allowed into the family circle, they have to develop independence early in life. The absence of family influences, attitudes, and traditions, excuse me, inspires or compels the orphan child to construct an inner reality based on personal judgment and experience. Orphans who succeed at finding a path of survival on their own are celebrated in fairy tales and folk stories and having won a battle with dark forces, which symbolically represents the fear of surviving alone in the world. The shadow aspect manifests when orphans never recover from growing up outside the family circle. Feelings of abandonment and the scar tissue from family rejection stifles their maturation, often causing them to seek surrogate family structures in order to experience tribal union. Therapeutic support groups become shadow tribes or families for an orphan child who knows deep down that healing these wounds requires on to adulthood. Identifying with the orphan begins by evaluating your childhood memories, paying particular attention to whether your painful history arises from the feelings that you were never accepted as a family member. Films: Margaret O'Brien in The Secret Garden, Victoire Thivisol in Bonette, Haley Mills in Pollyanna. Fiction: David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Drama: The Changeling by Thomas Middleton. Fairy tales: Snow White, Cinderella, Bambi, and the Little Mermaid. Religion and myth: Romulus and Remus, twins of Roman myth who were cast into the Tiber, miraculously rescued by a she-wolf and went on to found Rome. Moses, Havelock the Dane, in medieval romance, the orphan son of Berkebygone, king of Denmark, cast adrift by treacherous guardians, but found and raised by British fishermen, and eventually made king of Denmark and part of England. So that's that archetype. That was a long one.